What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronica, and you are watching a part of the Mindfulness podcast series. Today, we have a special guest with us here, Stephanie Phillips. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us today for the podcast. Today's topic is all about service. So, serving others. Why is it important to serve others? What are the benefits of serving others? And how to be more active in your community.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to get the conversation started. Giving back is one of my favorite things to do on my job and just in the community at my church. So I love this topic.
Thank you. We're so honored to have you here. Stephanie, have you always had a passion for serving others? When did you discover that this was something that you really enjoyed?
I think a few different stages in my life. I think early on at church, growing up in church, I always had a passion to help with the children's department that we had. So that started probably when I was about 14 or 15. And then as I got into high school and college and I started going to my cousin's church, he gave me the opportunity to lead the children's department. So that was, I think, the turning point where I was like, wow, this is amazing. I love pouring into the kids. And then I started doing volunteer work at the Boys and Girls Club. I enjoyed that, just seeing the youth and kind of the differences that I've had growing up that maybe they went through, sometimes not always the most happiest moments of things that they shared, but I think it really resonated with me the importance of having role models for all children to see, even if I didn't grow up the same way as Stephanie, there's opportunities for me to change the direction that my life might be headed in. So always enjoyed church volunteering, and then it became volunteering at the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club. So I think no matter what city I was in, I always found a way to volunteer and give back. And then that's really how it started at a very young age, and it kind of just carried through. So now with my current job, I'm always looking for ways to give back, and I work with college students. So it's important for me to provide those opportunities for them. And we do that through our co-op program, which is really just an internship. And students come to American Airlines and they stay for 8 months. But throughout those 8 months, it's very important to me that they don't just get their work done, but we also volunteer. So every summer we have an opportunity where students can go to Feed My Starving Children. In Dallas, we've done several different warehouses. We have students in Charlotte, Tulsa, Dallas. So we don't make it mandatory only because I would prefer when you're giving back, right? You need to be giving back because it's something that you want to do. It's called volunteering. So, but typically, like for example, last year we had 38 kids total students. They don't like to be called kids, uh, college students, and 36 of the 38 came out to volunteer. So, it's very important for me, and it's been that way since I was young. And even in the role that I have now, I just enjoy giving back. And recently signed up for church volunteering. So I started with our first through fifth graders. So I think there's no excuse not to give back. There's always different ways to give back. And I think one of your topics we'll talk about later of how to give back. So I won't lead too far into that, but that's kind of how I got started and where I am now with volunteering.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's pretty cool. So, not only did you work in volunteering with the youth at AA, but you create opportunities for them to serve and volunteer as well.
Yes. Yep. Mhm.
What are the most impactful ways that you've seen volunteering affect other people?
I do love our annual event with Feed My Starving Children. That's an amazing organization. We come together in this clean AC warehouse and we put together food and it's sent to all over the world, but Tahiti was the last place our boxes were sent. But I think the most impactful volunteering events is one we did last fall, where we weren't in a warehouse with AC and we weren't in a clean building. We were right there in the community handing out the food to the people that needed it. And I think that was for me and our students. I had students that came up to me and said, wow, like I've never been in a community like this. I can't believe these kids like are so excited to have the bread that we gave them or the sandwiches that we made, and the parents that were crying because they didn't have food to give their kids, but then we gave them an extra box. And we got there about 6 a.m. And when we got there, the community had already lined up. So the community you can see as you're driving into park, it was 2 blocks where people were in a line waiting to get food, waiting to get water. And I think that opportunity had the most impact because you see where it's going. It's nice to know that it's going to Tahiti. I trust that organization. I know that it's going there. But it's a different impact when you see like, wow, that mom is so thankful for just water. Like so many things that we take for granted. And I think watching my kids, like, oh, let me help her to her car. And oh, Steph, I'll get the water. And it's so hot outside. Like I'll walk around and pass out the water to the kids. And some of the other college students were playing games and they had soccer out there playing with the kids. And I think those are the most impactful moments of volunteering is when you actually get involved and see where it's going. So I think we'll probably go back to Dallas Partners just because of the opportunity to hand the food to them and not just box it up and get an email later like your food arrived in Africa,
Yeah.
which is great. Like that's great. But we have people right here in the United States that are struggling as well. And I think it's important for us to see those around the corner or that are in our community that need, I don't want to say just as much as help, but that need help as well, um, just like those around the world. So I think that's the most impactful. If you can find a place that you're actually seeing the hurt that people live through, can really change your perspective of not just volunteering, but life and how you grew up versus how it could have been for you. So,
Yeah. Just being grateful and appreciative for the blessings that we have and taking the time to give back and bless others.
yep, yeah. So we'll definitely be going back to that one. I think my leaders were a little bit, they saw the address and they're like, do you know where this is? Yes, I know exactly where that is. So,
That's why we're going.
right.
Yeah, there's a need.
Yeah. And that's where you have to go is where the need is. So we were all sweaty at the end of the day. It was outside in the middle of June in Dallas. But I think even the students felt the most impact at that facility versus Feed My Starving Children. So, but we'll probably still do both. I just think it's important to be in the community where the need is.
Right, to feel that. I love that you're focused on working with groups and organizations that can create communities for people to find a passion in the service of others, right?
Yeah.
And that hands-on experience that you were mentioning that the other volunteers got to feel by making that connection with the families one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask you too, what are some of the things that you hear from other people who have been a part of your program that mentioned maybe they were hesitant about joining before and serving, they didn't know what that would look like? What was the change for them, or what were some of the hesitations that were addressed?
Specifically for like our volunteer events.
Yes, where someone said, "Oh, I never wanted to volunteer, but something happened, and because of XYZ, but something happened, and then I gave it a shot, and it's just changed my life."
I think the best example is we had aviation week. So we brought in kids between the ages, I think the youngest was 6 or 7 up to 18. And our group specifically for the co-ops was that 6 to 10 year olds. And typically I know my students. So I know if Benjamin does not like children, I will not put Benjamin I will not volunteer Benjamin for one of those activities. But we didn't really have it wasn't over the summer, so our numbers were a little bit down. And then I know lots of the college students that I work with would probably prefer not to work with children. So I sometimes want to stretch the students to try something that they think they might not like. So I pulled Benjamin aside, and his whole face was just like, if you want me to, I will. And I said, all right, well, you don't have to, but if you will fill in for Jeffrey, because he wasn't able to go. And Benjamin did it, and he came back and he said, it wasn't that bad. There was this one girl that kept talking and wouldn't listen, but Morgan was there and she kind of like helped her be quiet. So I could tell it wasn't if he had to pick a volunteer event, that wouldn't have been it. But it was nice to see that he was stretching himself to try something else. And at the end of the day, he was like, it really wasn't that bad. Like, there was this one kid that told me at the end of the day that it was so cool that I get to work with airplanes and that he wants to do that when he gets older. So I think that was one of the times where I was just like, okay, for me as a leader, maybe I do give them more opportunities, even though I know it's not something they may not want to do, but I'm giving it as a option, not as you're going to do this. And if they choose to do it, that's fine. If they tell me no, that's fine. I told him, you don't have to do it. I can get somebody else to do it for you. But he did. And I think that that was one moment for Benjamin where he's like, well, it wasn't that bad. I thought it was going to be a whole lot worse working with the kids. I thought they weren't going to listen at all, and it was just going to be stressful, and it wasn't that bad. So he enjoys more of let's go to a warehouse and box some food. He's very introverted, not just with kids, but even the event that we went to in the community, I saw him kind of fade back to the warehouse. But even within that, I told him we need warehouse workers. We need people to box the food. We need people to run to the cars. We need people to do all sorts of things. And I think that leads back to finding what fits for you when it comes to volunteering. Because everybody doesn't have to do the same thing, same job. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Benjamin and the kids.
100%. I love that too because just like you said, there's so many different ways to give back and volunteer. Like if maybe one person's way of service might be working with animals or at a veterinarian's office. Another person might not like animals or they don't like working with children, but they have a heart for working with the homeless
Right.
and or working with the elderly, right?
Yeah.
Because that could be something that might initially give someone hesitation around serving, but I feel like we're all like God created us all with a passion for worship, like a
Yeah.
need to worship and a need to serve. And if you're not doing that, like if we're not serving other people and you look at people and they're sad and they're depressed, it's because we're not giving back. We're not letting that positive energy flow through us into someone else's life to bless them, and then it comes back to you. If it just
Right.
stays like stagnant water, it kind of uh, becomes dirty and you
Right.
poison yourself because
Yeah.
you're not releasing that energy
Right. That's so important to let it flow through to other people.
to bless others. Yeah. What are some of the other benefits that you've seen from serving other people?
Yeah, I think seeing and knowing that it doesn't stop there. So for me, um, like especially giving the opportunity to my students to volunteer, I know that I'm maybe planting just a little seed inside of them so that when I'm gone from this role or from this earth or what have you, they can look back and think like, I remember that time Beth had us volunteering, and now I'm over this program, or now I work with this group of people or adults or whoever, and I want to help other people too. So I think the biggest benefit for me is knowing that hopefully, one, it all comes full circle, and then two, that it continues on to different generations where they're thinking about the first time they volunteered as a group with American Airlines and went and saw the other people and want to share and continue to volunteer and invite somebody else to volunteer too, so that we can all, in our own way, kind of continue to give back. I think it's the biggest benefit for me if we can just start not just doing it once a year because the company tells us to do it, but finding other ways to do it outside of the company as well.
I love that, like igniting a passion in other people for service.
Yeah,
That, yeah, that like burns outside of just that one situation or interaction that you have for that one event, but they carry it with them throughout their lives and they pass it on to other people.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's a huge benefit, I think.
So that what you mentioned before about taking the time to encourage your students to step outside of their comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we never know what we might like if
If
we
we
don't
don't
try
try it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tell them that too with engineering because we have students that graduate all the time and there's like 20 to 24 different departments within engineering. So you can't just say, oh, I only want to work in power plant because that's where you did your co-op. There's fleet engineering, there's interiors, there's cabin, there's ESD, there's base support. Like there's so many different opportunities that you may love if you just try it. And I think that's the same way with volunteering is people think of volunteering, they think of this social aspect of, oh, I'm gonna have to go, help feed the elderly or play games with kids or sports. And they have this own vision of volunteering. And there's so many different ways that you can give back, even just building a playground or a garden or painting a house. So you have to find what works for you.
I love that. Like a lot of it's perspective and then
Mhm.
finding what works for you and being willing to take a chance and in stepping outside of your comfort zone to see what works for you that maybe you couldn't have envisioned before.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's good.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share about the power of service. I did want to ask you one more question before we leave, and that
Sure.
is if there's someone that's watching this podcast and they're thinking, man, Stephanie, I really want to serve other people, but I'm not sure where to go to get started.
Hmm.
What would you recommend?
Every city's a little bit different, but I've noticed even when I was new to Dallas, the very first thing I did and how I found Feed My Starving Children is the internet, just Google searching volunteer organizations in Dallas, volunteer organizations in Charlotte, and so many things will just pop up. If you are at a huge corporate company or organization, a lot of times, like with American Airlines, we have an entire website that's just for giving back. It's called the Do Crew. Let Good Take Flight is the slogan that they came up with. But you just go on your company website, go into that search bar, put in volunteer. I'm pretty sure especially if it's a Fortune 500, Bank of America, all of them have ways to give back, right? So you could do it through Google if you want to do it through your community. You can do a search on your company website if you want to do it and gather up coworkers. You can do it through your church. A lot of times your church organization has a volunteer aspect. I know with Elevation Church, Steve Furtick, we have an entire app that we do our volunteering through. We do a volunteer week through our church. If your church doesn't have a volunteer organization, be the one to start it. I always tell my students that they love to say, I like to have a leader that looks like me. Well, if you don't have a leader that looks like you, then you be the leader for somebody else. So just those are three different ways that you can do it. I'm sure that there's more, but those are the three ways that I give back in my communities, and then hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing with us today. We're just honored to have you here, and I will make sure to link some of the places that you've listed below on ways for people to get active in their community and serve others.
Yeah, so a lot of the places that I found was just on Google search. I know that United Way specifically, they do a lot of connections with different partnerships. So if you go to unitedway.com, they are a nonprofit organization, but they kind of connect with different nonprofits for different opportunities to volunteer in the community. So for a specific website, I'd probably say United Way.
United Way and Feed My Starving Children, right?
Yep. If you're in
Yeah.
the Dallas area, actually, I saw on their website because I'm getting ready to build to develop our next event. And Feed My Starving Children is in more than one place than Texas, and I don't remember the other states, but that's an amazing organization. They now do, if they don't have a actual facility and warehouse, they now do mobile volunteering. So they'll bring in a trailer to wherever you are, and you can pack boxes and lunches there. And they partner with restaurants across the United States. So they possibly could be in the state that others are in.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, for everything that you're doing and that you will continue to do to serve others and be a blessing, lift up God's kingdom. We're glad to have you here with us today. And thank you guys for watching, and we will
Awesome.
see you.
Thank you for
And
having me. I appreciate it.
my pleasure, our pleasure. I will see you soon, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.